Welcome. This is Why Not with Janice, and I'm Janice Newman. Today we have a special guest here from Social Services. I have a lady with me, Gwen White. She is a alumni manager, landlord advocate with the Deborah Place. Hi, Gwen. Welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Hi, Janice. Thank you for having me.
Why I wanted you on my show was, part of the show we do is Why Not, is helping people get their lives back together. Deborah's Place is so interesting. It's a place that gets women back on their feet from being homeless. Can you please tell me a little bit more about Deborah's Place? I appreciate that.
Sure, no problem. So Deborah's Place is actually a place that opens their doors for people to have the opportunity, I like to say, to live again. When you are in a homeless situation, a lot of times you are trying to survive versus live. So Deborah's Place opens their doors for opportunity to be housed. We believe that everyone has a right to housing.
Right.
And so Deborah's Place thrives off of putting women into housing and allowing them to gain their lives back and be able to move forward and set goals.
Now, how did this program all came about? Is there actually a Deborah?
So there was actually every one of our supportive housing programs has a meaning behind the names.
Okay.
And so there, if you look in the Bible, there was a woman named Deborah. And so a lot of the names were depicted from biblical names. And so as like with Mara's, which was a permanent supportive program that we just recently closed. And Mara's means a woman who wept bitterly. And so they also pulled that from a biblical story with Naomi and when she lost her husband and all of those things happened. And so she wept bitterly, and so that's where the name Mara's came from. So all of the names come from either a biblical term or someone who was actually in one of the housing programs from the very beginning.
Now, who started the program?
So there were women who came together and they actually housed people in a gym, was a church gym. And so it's kind of like a drop-in center. And then it went from a drop-in center to transitional housing programs, which was Mara's. Mara's was one of the first transitional housing programs. They later turned that into a permanent supportive housing program, which actually after that we ended up having 3 permanent supportive housing programs.
So originally it kind of started as like a shelter, like during the wintertime, just for women though?
For women only. We only serve single women who identify as women.
Okay, so no children are allowed, so these are basically just single women, no children involved, no spouses or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay. Now, where is this located? You said the
So Mara's was actually located on the northwest side of Chicago.
northwest side.
And so our admin office and also case management and our other permanent supportive housing program is on the west side of Chicago.
Now, this is a nonprofit that was started, and it's just geared for women. Now, how do these women, where do you find these women to come and help in your, or to get services in your program?
So at one point there was what's called the CRS, and that was the Chicago Referral System, where if you go into any social service agency, say if you go, there's a place called Sarah Circle or Catholic Charities, usually the case manager will meet with the client that's homeless and they will put them into the system. Now they have changed it to what's called the coordinated entry system, and they put the information into the system and it deems you if you're eligible or not. And so 2 of the criteria for being eligible is that you have either a physical or mental disability, or you have and also you have a physical or mental disability, and you also have to have been homeless for at least a year or 3 to 4 times in 4 years. So there has to be a proof of chronic homelessness or some type of disability, both actually, to even be qualified when you are put on this list. Once you're put on this list, then the funders or agencies pull, we don't pull the clients from the list, but there's an outreach team that pulls the clients from the list, and then they send them to us. So
Okay.
they're pretty much in the city of Chicago, they're not really places where you can just walk in and get on a
No.
waiting list
Okay.
anymore. A lot of the system has been manipulated by people, so they want to make sure that people, if they're homeless, that they're really homeless and that we're able to help them.
So a lot of these people are possibly disabled, mental, physical issues, and have been homeless at least, you said, 4 times out the year.
Either that or 12 months, so at least a year of homelessness, they consider that chronically
Oh, a
homeless.
complete year of being homeless, the
a
whole
complete
year of
year.
being, a complete year of being homeless. Oh my. Okay. So then that's what you're trying to help those women get completely 360, get their lives back together again.
Yeah.
They've been homeless for a year. Now, with these women, they go through another program before they come to you. How does your program specifically help these women then?
So, as well, I was actually, when I started as a case manager.
Okay.
So we were given a grant for community-based housing programs. Actually, Deborah's Place had permanent supportive housing. They also had an interim program where there was a 10-bed, and then we still have it, 10-bed stay, where they have only 120 days to be in there. So it's kind of like our little shelter. And then they also have what's called Safe Haven, which they are able to stay there. There's 15 cube spots for them. And then they have also another permanent supportive program there. But we actually started a community-based program early on, I'll say maybe about 7 years ago. And then we went into more community-based housing programs. So that's where I started.
Okay.
And so the women, when they come in, the focus is housing, income, and health.
Okay.
Because when they're homeless, they can't focus on anything
Right.
but surviving. So then once they come into Deborah's Place, depending on where we have the space, because we have, like I said, there's different amount of women in each program, and so it depends on the space we have available.
Well, how many people do you normally service at one time, or how many people are in the program? I understand you have the transition program, so that's the people that are coming and going, so they may just be there for a short time, 30 days or less. Then you have the long-term.
So the transition, we no longer have. We turned that transitional housing program into the permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
The only program that actually has a time frame to it is the interim, what they call Teresa's, is the interim housing program, which is a 120-day stay.
120
and
days.
that is basically a time for them to kind of gather themselves and maybe find a way to get a voucher, get income, and be able to get back on their feet. So it's kind of like a quick thing that, for that particular program. All the other programs, there's no limitation on their stay. So the permanent supportive housing program, they can stay as long as they like. We encourage them to move on if they can, but there is no limit on that or the community-based programs.
Now, when they come to you, I know they're homeless, but do they have to go through steps or a procedure? Like suppose, and I read on your website, deborahplace.org, that some of these women have not only disabilities, but they may have drug abuse issues, mental health issues. Does your program help them get the proper medical treatment for that first, or do you get them in the room first in a shelter home setting and then start working on those other aspects of their life?
So housing is first.
Housing's first.
And for all the programs, they have provided them with case management services. So there's wraparound services for everyone. So the focus is housing, health, and income for all the programs. And so we start off with housing, and then we go into the other aspects of their life. And if they have dealt with any type of addiction, we are a harm reduction agency, so we don't force them to go into treatment or anything of that nature. We just encourage them to move forward and set goals. Sometimes those goals are treatment, sometimes they're not. So we just we assist them with making goals and setting goals and then
Okay.
following up and following through.
That was my question too. How can you get some of these individuals, they may want to be off the street, but they may not want to do the drug rehab. They may not want to do something mental health, see a counselor. How do you get them, and I know you said you're harm-free, that you don't force them to do this, but is it difficult as a case manager to help someone that's having these addiction problems or other issues, and then you're having to deal with the personality types to help them actually get a place and be able to be functioning people again?
So one of the things I think that is really important is not to look at what they come in with, all of the different behaviors and all of the things that they have dealt with, because a lot of times they've dealt with trauma. So when they've dealt with trauma, they have all these different issues that come along with that trauma, and they're trying to cope with it. So we can't, stop them from what they use as coping skills, but what we do is we try to encourage new coping skills. And so you can't force it. You have to kind of let them set the goals.
Okay.
And decide what they believe it or not, they know what's best for
Right,
them.
okay.
So we don't force anything.
Okay. Few more questions. I want to delve into this. The reason why I really feel that women need to get help, and it starts with education. I had a person in the program that talked about education, housing, so we can get that foundation again to go forward. Now, your program helps with the housing. They help them get their health back. How is the atmosphere social-wise? Because that's one aspect that a lot of people don't think about. We may have our job, we may have our education, but we need that extra social aspect of camaraderie, of friendship, and just feeling as a person as whole again.
Yes.
Does your program help them feel whole again?
Yes, we love social gatherings. We love to eat. we love to have fun. So all of the programs are always trying to find ways to do things that make them regain their lives back. One of the things that I used to do is not only did I provide life skills programs for people to come in, like budgeting, banking, all those different type of things, cooking. We do all kind of things to kind of help them regain themselves back. But we also did things like spa day. So I would say to them, if you do at least 2 of the life skill groups, then we'll have a spa day in the beginning of the year. We had a spa day at the end of the year.
Okay.
So I would get licensed hairstylists and all of my little people together. I'd have food and we'd have music and they'd get gifts. And they would come out and do this for free service because we are a nonprofit agency. We don't have any money to pay them. And so they would come in and they would service our ladies. And the ladies were leaving out with lipstick and going on the bus stop. They were so happy.
Feeling whole again, feeling whole again,
So
feeling
it's a
whole
repeated
again.
thing. We do
Right.
this throughout the year. All the programs do it. We do Christmas parties. We do Thanksgiving. We do bowling. Some of them just went to the Judge Mathis show the other day.
Oh.
We get them out. We go downtown. They go to plays.
Okay. So it's a social thing, because that's a lot of people where they find themselves on the street or having mental issues, depression, or trying to go towards drugs is because they're missing that social aspect. And social aspect of being whole. So it's great that Deborah Place does that. Now, describe the facility. Now, is it separate housing for them? Is it combined housing? How does that work for the housing to help these people out?
So we have a location on the west side that has 90 SROs. So the SROs have a kitchenette, a bathroom, and they also have a bed space. And so they have, it's almost like being in your own little apartment, and so the women also have a learning center there. So they're able to go down to the learning center, which has computers, and they have groups, and they have daily activities for them. So it feels like a place that will help them to become whole eventually, because there's always something going on there. And so, but them having their own private space, they're able to feel like they have their own apartment. They do have some rules, just because we have 90 women in a building.
Oh my!
So they do have case management. There's 3 case managers, 30 women to each case manager, each caseload. So they have that supportive service as well. And so it's the same way in every program.
Okay. Well, that's great. That is super. I'm really excited about that. Now, you have 90 women there. Now, I'm just wondering, how is that atmosphere with 90 women in one building? You are the manager of this building of 90 women. How is that whole dynamic and structure and personalities? And earlier we talked about on the Greg Strauss show about respect. So how is that, like, even with people learning respect and life skills besides social skills, they need life skills. So how's that?
So I don't manage this particular building. I managed Mara's just recently with the 30 women, and from my experience, I had to learn how to be consistent with my message. So whatever was going on, it was just consistency. You had to continue to pretty much say the same thing because you're dealing with so many different personalities. And so the women are not all downstairs at the same time. You don't see them all at one time. And so it's not like you see these 90 women walking through the building all day. But it is quite interesting to have that many women in one building, and I think we might have 2 or 3 men in the whole, maybe 4 in the whole entire building.
Oh, wow.
But dealing with the women, it's again, like, they are not all downstairs together at one time, so you don't see them all at one time. But there's always a lot of interesting situations that happen in the building, but we are consistent with what we do with them. Even just, women can be very catty.
That's what I was
So there's a way to work with them without saying stop being catty. You just kind of gotta focus on the behavior.
Now, do you work with other agencies, or you have your own agency, like to help people get jobs, go back to school, those life coaching
All those life
skills?
skills and wraparound services are provided through the case manager and the learning centers that are in each one of the locations that we have for permanent supportive housing programs. I have been given the opportunity to actually train case managers, and that was a separate thing through the funders, about case management and kind of how to deal with the hard to engage. And that's because our group of people sometimes can be.
So you also have a learning center in each building. So what's involved in the learning center? Is that like teaching people resumes or
They have
skills?
a actual calendar for every month, and they have social things that they do, like beading. They have painting. They have people come in. They do book club. They do computers. They do resume. They do banking. They do budgeting. All of those things throughout the entire month. There's a calendar in learning centers, and so the women are able to come every day. The learning center is open, or they can just go in and utilize the computer on their own and do what they need to do. But there's always a class. There's always somebody donating a lunch. There's always something going on. They do really well with the learning centers. Those who run the learning centers, they keep them quite busy. So.
Now I know the place started, Deborah's Place, deborahplace.org. It started in 1985, and your organization has helped over 4,000 women. Have any of those women, have you seen success stories of them coming back to even help and giving back?
Yes,
Pay it forward?
A lot of them ask that. A lot of them come back. We have a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want." When they're there, they complain, but when they leave, they come back and they want to give back. That actually is where I come in, because I manage Alumnae services. So that's anyone who left any of our permanent supportive housing programs, as well as the community-based housing programs, and if they're in, the idea is to keep them from going back into homelessness.
Right.
So if there's issues or situations that come up, they always can call me or get the support from me, or I also manage interns, so I supervise the interns, and the interns are there to assist with Alumnae services. And we do gatherings, so we do that twice a year, Alumnae gatherings. That is just so we can keep contact with the ladies, and they know that they still have that support even after they leave. But they're always, they call after they leave. Some of them are attached to case managers, and I actually reached out to one of my former cases that was on my caseload, and she was so happy to hear from me because she was probably one of the most challenging people that I had worked with, and she can I come in, can I give back, can I do this? And so we get that a lot.
I'm sure you've had a lot of challenging people over your time on your caseworkers and working on that. Now, you also have a personal connection with the shelter, not actually the shelter, but with homelessness. And part of my show is I like not only providing information for people to get help and empower themselves, but also to let people know about success stories and stories that are to the heart that, hey, I know these things are bad or they've been hard times, but people have gotten through it. Would you like to share with us your connection that you had?
Sure. So I have to say I went to school to be a criminal lawyer.
Okay.
And when I got done with undergrad, that didn't happen. I went to Bridgeview Courthouse and I did my internship, and I said, I can't lie for people.
You can't lie for people.
They murdered somebody, so this is not for me. And so I did daycare for years, and I taught in daycare. And then I got married, I had children, and then I had an unhealthy marriage, which led to a lot of unhealthy situations. And
Been there, know that.
And I don't blame, I'm not angry, but it did have a lot to do with who I am now and what transpired, how I got into social services. And so it ended up, fast forward, losing everything that I had except for my storage totes, which were filled with clothes, and my children.
Yes.
And so I remember not wanting to be embarrassed because I'd never been evicted. I grew up in a two-parent home where I had everything I never wanted for anything. And so to lose everything was very devastating. I ended up selling my stuff so that I wouldn't be embarrassed and my stuff be put out on the street. And so I ended up staying with a member of my former church, and she was very helpful, very nice. She had her own family. It was pretty crowded.
Right.
She invited me and my ex-husband to stay.
Oh, okay.
And he chose to leave
Okay.
again. So that was the decision that he made. And so I stayed, tried to pull it together, and then someone said to me, and I actually had gotten a prophetic word that I needed to leave where I was, and she wasn't sure if it was a place or just a mind thing. And so I started thinking about it, and I was praying, and then it was just like, yeah, I had to go. It was just too much happening. So I ended up going to a shelter. You're talking about devastated and traumatized.
Sure.
I was sitting at this table with this lady, and I was shaking. Like, I was literally shaking, and I was crying, and she was just like, it's going to be okay. And I'm looking at her like, what? Like, I'm in here. This is like, I feel like I'm really alone. And a lot of people didn't know that I was even in the shelter. And when I say I had nothing, I had nothing. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. And so I went to this shelter. It was a family shelter, and I was in the heart of the ghetto. So I could not, like, if I wanted to walk outside, it was in the drug-infested neighborhood. And I said, how am I going to do this? The funny thing was I had a job interview the day of my eviction. I missed my court date because the person that picked me up late. If you're late, just a note. If you're late for eviction, it's an automatic eviction. And so I said, well, let me just go to this job interview. So when I ended up in the shelter, I got a call. And someone told me, as soon as you move from this situation, things are going to happen for you really quick. So I felt like, okay, let me be obedient. And I just had to trust God. I didn't know what was going to happen. Went to this shelter, scared as I don't know what. I hear scratching in the walls. I had no clue what was going on. I thought raccoons were in the ceiling. There were mice in the ceiling. I mean, in the walls. I didn't know what was going on. They had all these rules. You had to have your children in the room by a certain time. My son got away one day. I got wrote up because he ran out the room. And it was just really crazy. And so I'm downstairs one day cooking. The mice ran across the floor. I was just like, oh, God, I cannot do this. And so I went upstairs. I went upstairs. There was some, mice pellets in my coat. So I said, I can't do this anymore. And so they decided to shut the shelter down because I literally went upstairs.
So they shut it down when you were actually
right
living
after I saw
there.
that mouse, and I said I can't do this no more. The next week they shut it down. They gave us 2 weeks.
Okay.
And agencies came out. This one particular agency came out, and I ended up working for this agency later. And it was it was all God. I'm telling you, I had no clue what was happening. And so I ended up. They said, you have a degree in sociology, and they were like, try it out and see if you like it. I did, and I loved it. Worked with families. I worked with men. I worked with women, and I loved it. And so I ended up getting back on my feet. I got a car, had a little putt-putt. I mean, when I say, mean, and seriously, my car never stopped on me. I had to learn how to drive a stick shift in one day.
Yeah.
And I got a stick. I put, my hood came up. I had to put bungee cords on my. I mean, like I wasn't embarrassed either. I was just like, it is what it is. I mean, I know it's gonna
I
get
know,
better.
yeah.
And so I ended up with a better
Yeah.
van, and I really heard God say it's gonna get better, and it's
Right.
gonna get better, and it's gonna continue to get better. So and it did. I went from a little putt to a green van to a nice van to a brand new car so it was just getting better and better.
So, would you recommend a shelter for someone in need? Now, for myself, I have been homeless before. I was fortunate that it was a short time period, and I had family and friends to go to. So I can never say I've been into a shelter, but I had that. You know the feeling of being homeless, and you've lost everything, and there's nothing, and to start from literally nothing and work your way back up is amazing.
Yeah.
So would you recommend this to people if they really needed a place to contact someone like Deborah Place or any other shelter place? Because you and I both have experienced a homelessness, and you've experienced it from a shelter that helped you.
A lot of people are afraid of the shelter, which I can't say it was a pretty scary experience. But if you stay focused, which I did, and you just focus on your goals, because I did end up getting a job. I was on call. I would go in best way I could get there before I even got a car. And I would suggest that they reach out to the resources. There are so many resources out there. Calling 311 is one way to start, and asking what's the nearest shelter that's open and has a space available. Also in Chicago, it's a little different. You have to go to one of the access point, which is a place where they actually do what's called the coordinated entry system intake. So that gets them on the list. But in the suburbs, it's so different. There's not many places for assistance that you can get to be in a shelter, but they do provide services in the suburbs. You just have to call around, and that's what I did. You call around Catholic Charities, just call places and see what's available.
Now, also, another aspect of my show is I like to have successful women like you. You've come from little to much, again. Strong faith in God, which I love that you shared that with our audience. Please give our audience a perspective of being a mom, career person, your spiritual wise, advice for how people can move from one step to the next. These are people that are homeless, now they have homes. Give them a piece of advice on how moving their life to the next level.
Setting short-term attainable goals so that it's not overwhelming, because you don't want to set goals that are overwhelming. But I set goals for myself. I said I was going to do this by this time. I was going to do this by this time. And I went back to school with babies. I worked long hours. I got off from work, took my kids with me to daycare, from daycare to daycare, went back to school and got 2 masters. So it just took discipline and goals.
Okay. That's good. Great advice for people. And can you please at least tell the audience again the website?
Yes, they can go to www.deborahsplace.org, and they can go on to I think it's About Us.
Okay.
And they can see all of what we do.
Okay, great.
And for the donors who want to donate and support.
Well, I thank you very much, Gwen, for coming on our show. Our time is up. I want to have you back on here again. Talk more about goal setting and motivation, getting people to the next level. And thank you very much for joining us, my wonderful audience. This is Why Not with Janice, and I'm Janice Newman. And we had a wonderful guest here. I hope you learned something. Please, you can meet us on Facebook, also whynot.com. Thank you very much. Have a nice night. Good night.
You know what I